Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Healer Sports World once again. I know it's been a while, but with UFC 272 right around the corner, I had to make this breakdown video and get it out as soon as I could. And yeah, what an amazing pay per view we have on deck with Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington set to headline in one of the biggest grudge matches in history. Presumably the biggest grudge match in UFC history, in recent UFC history, and the entire storyline regarding this fight is like straight out of a Hollywood movie. Two former teammates, roommates who broke into the scene together are now finally set to fight in the biggest stage. You couldn't have written a better script than this. So yeah, obviously going to be looking into this fight and take a look at the rest of the UFC 272 main card. So without any further ado, welcome back to our channel and let's dive straight into this UFC 272 prediction, review and breakdown video. Okay, so the main focal point of this entire card is, of course, surrounding the main event, a big fight in the UFC's welterweight division between Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington. Masvidal, of course, coming into this fight on the back of two straight losses to the reigning UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. The last time we saw Gamebred in action was back at UFC 261 when he was brutally knocked out by Usman in the title fight. And yeah, right now, I think Masvidal is in a very bizarre spot at the moment. He's ranked at number 6 in the welterweight division and he's in his late 30s as well. And the worst part is that Masvidal could be suffering his third straight loss this weekend at UFC 272. Now, that's something that hasn't happened to Masvidal so far in his career. The last time he lost two fights in a row was back in 2017 when he was beaten by Damon Maia and Stephen Thompson in back to back fights. So obviously, a lot is on the line for Gamebred at UFC 272. Not just his title contentions, but his spot in the entire division as well. I mean, he's after all one of the biggest stars in the UFC today. He's very marketable, and suffering three straight losses is not a good sign. Meanwhile, for Colby Covington, on the other hand, Covington, I think he has had his fair share of ups and downs in the UFC lately. He's 1-2 in his last three fights, with both losses being to Kamaru Usman. Both fights were absolutely incredible, and Covington, of course, did a way better job in both his fights against the champion compared to what Masvidal did in his fights against Usman. Now, you could say that all the pressure in the world is on Masvidal's shoulders right now, and rightfully so. But I do believe that Covington has a lot to prove here as well, especially after losing to Usman twice. I mean, if I'm being absolutely honest, Covington's UFC resume is certainly not the greatest resume in the world. He has gotten himself two big wins over former world champions Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley, but Covington's win over Masvidal would feel like his first legit big win over a top contender from the current division, and that's why Colby Covington does have a lot to prove here at UFC 272. Now, getting down to the fight itself, I'm obviously favoring Covington to secure a very dominant victory. Of course, we're all expecting Colby to use his typical wrestling background to dominate Masvidal on the mat, and I do believe that is exactly what this fight is going to look like. I mean, there's a lot of chit chat regarding Masvidal's takedown defense and how people are giving him an outside chance to surprise Colby with a potential knockout, much like he did against Ben Askren. But if you look at it in a more realistic way, I'm totally expecting Covington to neutralize Masvidal's striking and not let him get any sort of significant offense or any significant opening in this fight. Now, back at UFC 245, Colby obviously tried standing up with Kamaru Usman, who, despite being known for his wrestling background, has turned into one of the most deadliest strikers in the game right now. And of course, Colby paid a massive price for it in that first fight. Here, Covington, of course, cannot make that same mistake and try to beat Masvidal in his own game by standing up with him. Masvidal is a very clinical and calculated striker, and he never really rushes into anything in hope of getting a KO. We saw something similar happen against Nate Diaz when Masvidal just battered Diaz for 3 rounds and didn't let Nate close the distance on him and used his kicks to his advantage as well. Now, that is something Colby, of course, has to keep in mind. He cannot get cocky in there, which I'm sure won't be the case, as Covington, I believe, has one of the best fighting IQs right now. And with that being said, I think Covington has this fight figured out. I think the wrestling is going to be his blueprint for this fight. And if you ask me, I think we're going to see a lot of Colby Covington versus Robbie Lawler in this fight, and it probably is going to look a lot similar to that bout from 2019 when Colby gave Lawler when Colby never really gave Lawler a chance to use his striking and absolutely dominated the fight on the mat and against the fence. Of course, one other aspect that Masvidal should be concerned about is Colby's incredible gas tank and his cardio. I mean, Colby has been in absolute wars as of late with Usman, and with both his fights going to the fifth round and Colby's second fight against Usman pretty much gave everyone an idea on how good his gas tank actually is. We all saw at UFC 251 that Masvidal had real problems with his cardio against Usman in the first round, in the first fight, excuse me, and that could very well reflect in this fight as well. Colby could take Masvidal to the deep waters, and I'm expecting him to win this fight via a decision and not via any sort of submission, as many have predicted as of late. I think Masvidal's cardio will get the better of him, and Covington could exploit it very well in this fight. For an official prediction, Colby Covington via unanimous decision. I mean, he's got the advantage on the ground, advantage in terms of cardio as well. But I say this in almost every video that it's a fight after all, and while I don't see it happening, a knockout for Jorge Masvidal at UFC 272 will probably be the most craziest thing we will see in a while inside that UFC octagon. On other than the fight in general, there are a lot of aspects that are in hand. Covington knows a lot about Masvidal's fighting style. Masvidal is a lot familiar with Covington's style as well, but Masvidal is of course still a part of ATT, a gym where Covington once trained at, so he has that slight advantage in that department as well. But at the end of the day, when the two men are locked up inside that octagon, I just don't think any of this will matter or come in play. But yeah, Colby Covington domination is my prediction for this fight, and looking forward to the press conference later today as well. Should be a really fun one, and I really hope that they get everyone from the main card up there in that stage, especially when you have someone like Kevin Holland fighting on this card. And now that he's a welterweight, I can't wait to see him interact with Colby Covington. I mean, that will be hilarious. But yeah, it's probably going to be the same old questions once again. I mean, almost every single Jorge Masvidal interview I've seen so far leading up to this fight has him answering the same old questions as to why this beef with Colby Covington started in the first place. I mean, just give it a break. Ask some new questions, maybe. Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's my take for this fight. Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal should be another awesome fight week, regardless of the outcomes. You guys let me know your predictions for this one, and now I shall look into the rest of the UFC 272 card. Okay, so in the co-main event, the actual BMF Renato Moicano fighting Rafael Dos Anjos in what promises to be a very good fight at catchweight. Dos Anjos was initially set to face Rafael Fiziev, but he tested positive for COVID and had to withdraw just days before the fight. Best wishes to him, but this is a great replacement fight nonetheless, and I'm totally backing RDA to win here, but should be a good fight, like I said. Next up, we have this featherweight bout between Bryce Mitchell and Edson Barbosa. Mitchell, of course, has the advantage on the ground here. He's very good on the mat, as we have seen, but Barbosa has very good takedown defense, and I do believe that we're going to see a clinical striking performance from Edson, and I think that's how he gets it done in this fight. Next up, we have Kevin Holland fighting Cowboy Oliveira at welterweight. I almost said Charles Oliveira there, but Cowboy Oliveira it is. Holland desperately needs a win. He has his work cut out in this fight. He is winless in his last three fights, and we shall see if there's anything different from him at 170, even though I highly doubt it. And in the main card opener, Sergey Spivak versus everyone's favorite Greg Hardy. I don't know. I just hope Sergey Spivak wins. Anyway, UFC 272 is a low-key very, very good card, and I'm looking forward to the fights this weekend, much like all of you are. Hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown and preview video of Covington versus Masvidal. I'll see you guys in the next video.